had always believed that no matter how ungrateful children turned out, a mother's presence should still mean something. But on my 69th birthday, seated at my own table, I learned just how wrong I was. The dining room was full of chatter, laughter that wasn't mine, and glasses clinking. Evelyn, my son's wife, had planned the evening down to the ribbon on the cake, though she'd reminded me at least twice that it wasn't for me exactly. It was just an excuse to gather people. Still, I had tried to be grateful, smiling at their guests, nodding when people I barely knew congratulated me for holding on so well at your age. When it was time for gifts, I didn't expect anything lavish. A scarf, a framed photo, perhaps a hug from my son, Daniel. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, wine glass in hand, and with a smirk that cut deeper than any knife, he said, loud enough for the entire table to hear, "You know what the best gift would be? If you just died. Then we could all finally move on. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video?" The laughter that followed wasn't nervous. It was genuine, sharp, and cruel. Evelyn giggled into her hand, her eyes sparkling like he had made the wittiest toast of the evening. Even my grandchildren, too young to understand the depth of the words, laughed because everyone else was laughing. I sat frozen, my fork hovering over the slice of cake I hadn't touched. The chandelier above me hummed faintly, casting a glare on my glass. My cheeks burned, not from wine, but from humiliation. No one defended me. No one shifted uncomfortably. It was as though I truly had no worth, just a body taking up space, a joke in their perfect evening. Daniel leaned closer, his voice lowering but not enough that others couldn't hear. "Don't look so offended, Mom. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You're old. You're a burden. The best gift would be your absence." The words landed heavier than any insult before, and yet I didn't cry. Not there. I swallowed the pain whole and let silence be my only answer. They thought my silence was defeat. They thought my stillness meant they had broken me. What they didn't know was that I had been helping Daniel for years, quietly, without announcing it. When he wanted to expand his business, who did he come to? Me. When Evelyn wanted her designer kitchen, who covered the loan she didn't tell her friends about? Me. I had dipped into my savings, the last pieces of security I had built over decades of working and scrimping, telling myself it was for family, for their future, for my grandchildren. That night, as the party wound down, I excused myself early, muttering about being tired. In truth, I went upstairs to my room, locked the door, and opened the folder I kept hidden under the bed. Pages of transfers, receipts, documents, proof that the very foundation of Daniel's so-called success sat on the back of the burden he mocked. I ran my fingers over the numbers, my breath shaking not with weakness, but with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My son thought my death would be the greatest gift, but I realized, sitting alone under the muffled echoes of their laughter downstairs, that my absence wouldn't hurt him nearly as much as my withdrawal. He didn't know it yet, but I was about to take back every lifeline I had quietly extended, and when the rug was pulled, I wouldn't be the one left begging. The following week, I became invisible in my own home. Daniel and Evelyn stayed in the guest suite, treating it as if it were theirs, ordering in food, throwing parties, laughing loudly with their friends while I kept to my room. Evelyn's voice echoed through the hallways. "Honestly, Daniel, your mother's so dramatic. She should be grateful we even stayed for her sad little birthday." They didn't know that while they laughed, I was on the phone with the bank. My hands trembled slightly as I gave them the account numbers, but my voice didn't waver. "Effective immediately," I told the manager. "Terminate the automatic transfers into Daniel's business account. Cancel all authorizations under my name." There was a pause, then the polite reply. "Understood, Mrs. Carter. We'll process it right away." Click. I sat back in my chair and breathed long and steady. That was it. With one phone call, I had undone years of being their silent benefactor. Evelyn once bragged that their empire ran itself, but I knew better. It was me, my savings, my sacrifices, my steady hand behind the curtain. Days later, the cracks began to show. Daniel stormed into the kitchen one morning, his face red, his phone clutched in his hand. "What the hell is this? The suppliers are pulling out. They said the payment bounced." I looked up from my tea, calm. "Maybe you should check with your bank." Evelyn followed behind him, hair in rollers, robe barely tied. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? The boutique can't get its shipments, Daniel. My reputation is on the line." Their shouting filled the room, but I didn't flinch. I sipped my tea slowly, the steam fogging my glasses. Over the next few weeks, I watched their empire unravel. Calls came at all hours of the night. Angry investors, unpaid employees, friends demanding to know when they'd get their money back. Evelyn screamed at Daniel in the hallways. "You promised me stability. You said your mother would never let us fall." The irony tasted sweeter than any cake I'd ever baked. At dinners, their once perfect table looked different. No more catered meals, no more bottles of wine with labels I couldn't pronounce. Instead, cheap takeout boxes cluttered the space, sauce dripping onto the tablecloth Evelyn used to guard with her life. The children, once mocking, now picked at cold noodles, glancing nervously at their parents fighting. Daniel grew desperate. He knocked on my bedroom door late one night, his voice low, almost trembling. "Mom, I need you to help me, just until things settle. Please. You know I've always relied on you." I opened the door and studied him. His hair was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot, his once proud shoulders slumped. I remembered his words at my birthday, crystal clear. "The best gift would be if you just died." "I'm tired, Daniel," I whispered. "Too tired to die for you. Too tired to fund you. You'll have to manage without me." And I shut the door. The silence afterward was thick, suffocating. I could almost feel him crumbling on the other side. By the end of the month, the whispers spread. His business partners stopped returning calls. Evelyn's boutique, once the talk of her circle, closed its doors. Creditors circled like vultures, knocking at their door. They began avoiding me altogether. I could hear them whispering late at night in the kitchen. Evelyn's voice sharp, Daniel's desperate. "Ask her again," Evelyn hissed. "Get on your knees if you have to. We can't survive without her." And I waited, patient, quiet, knowing the moment would come when the son who once wished for my death would realize that his survival depended entirely on me. It was late on a Friday evening when I heard the knock. Not the sharp, entitled pounding I had grown used to from Evelyn, but soft, almost pleading. I opened the door and there was Daniel, my son, who once told me my death would be his gift, on his knees in the hallway. His hair was unwashed, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red and swollen. He looked nothing like the proud man who had laughed at me in front of a room full of guests. "Mom," his voice cracked, "please, they're going to take everything. The house, the cars, the business. Evelyn's gone to stay with her sister. She said she won't come back unless I fix this. I don't know what to do. I need your help." Behind him, the children stood in silence, no mocking giggles this time, just fear in their wide eyes. For the first time, they looked at me not as a joke, not as someone useless, but as something solid, something they might lose too. I didn't answer. I stepped past him, cane tapping on the hardwood, and walked toward the dining room. He followed on his knees, shuffling, desperate. The same dining room where, weeks ago, he had lifted his glass and told me the world would be better if I was gone. I sat down at the head of the table, not the corner where they usually shoved me, not the side seat they left when every other chair was taken, but the head. I let the silence drag until it stung. Then I finally spoke. "You wanted me dead, Daniel. You wanted me gone so you could eat, drink, and laugh without the burden of my presence. And now, here you are, crawling back, begging the ghost you buried." He lowered his head, shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry, Mom. I was stupid. I didn't mean it." "I was drunk. It was just a joke." "Jokes have consequences," I cut in sharply. "Words have weight. You used mine to build your life, and then you spat on me when the room was full of people. Do you know what it feels like to sit at your own birthday table and hear your child say the best gift would be your death?" He said nothing. Tears slid down his face, dripping onto the polished wood. "I don't want your tears," I said. "I want your silence. The same silence I gave you when I stopped paying for everything. You thought I was your safety net. You thought no matter how cruel you were, I would catch you. That net is gone. You will learn to live without it." His hands clutched at the tablecloth. "Please, just enough to get back on my feet. I'll change, I swear." I leaned forward, lowering my voice until it was barely above a whisper. "The only thing you'll change is your memory of me. From now on, when you think of me, you will remember this moment, on your knees, begging the woman you once told to die." He broke down then, sobbing so loudly it echoed through the house. The children watched horrified as their father, once the loudest voice, the strongest presence, crumbled into nothing. Evelyn, who had crept back in, stood frozen at the doorway, mascara streaked across her face, unable to say a word. I rose slowly, cane steady in my hand, and walked toward the door. Daniel crawled after me, clutching at the hem of my skirt like a child. "Mom, don't leave me like this, please. I can't do this without you." I turned, my face calm, almost serene. "Then you should have thought about that before you made a wish you can't take back." And I left him there, on the floor, broken, in the very place he once humiliated me. That night I slept better than I had in years, not because I ruined him, but because I no longer carried him. He wanted me gone. He got his wish, just not the way he imagined. By morning, the house felt different, lighter. My burden was no longer mine. It was his, and for the first time in decades, I felt free. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.